The fastest time that a Paladin has completed the endgame challenge in Diablo 2 has been beaten yet again. A new version of the Amp Smiter has proven to be the most savage boss-killing Paladin build in the game. This new world record in D2R eclipses the old record on LOD. But what is this build, and what is this category all about? Let's take a look at the history of this very niche challenge and the character behind it all. The history of this speedrunning category is a bit tainted, to say the least. The run started out as a meme in 2017 on the original version of the game, which is referred to as LOD, or Lord of Destruction. Speedrunning was becoming very popular for this game around that time, thanks to speedrunners like Mr. Llama SC. But for the people who didn't have the patience to speedrun LOD in its entirety, well, you could just deck out your character and see how fast you could beat the toughest endgame challenge, Uber Tristram. This challenge consisted of killing 3 souped-up Uber bosses before entering the portal to Tristram to fight even more souped-up versions of the primevals. Rules to these meme-style runs weren't well thought out back then, and players were pre-buffing their characters to Kingdom Come before the run even started, which really called into question just how long the runs actually took. Additionally, there was only one class, the Paladin, that could achieve any sort of reasonable time for the run, and because of how miserable it was for any other class to even try this challenge, subcategories didn't really exist. Regardless of the imperfections of the speedrun, it was a fun one to do, but little did we know how well such a concept would catch on. When the game was remade in 2021, it didn't take long for some of our favorite content creators to join the fray and theorycraft builds to beat these endgame bosses quickly. But with the remake of Diablo 2 came a further tainting of this speedrun category. Whenever you entered a portal, a loading screen would now appear in the new version, which made it seem like there was no way a faster time was reasonably going to be achieved in the new version of this game. But as much as the category itself was far from perfect, so wasn't the remake of Diablo 2. Early patches included so many unintended glitches. One of them enabled the sorceress to be a legitimate contender for this challenge. This, of course, was the double tick glitch. This made it so that the skill firewall was hitting targets far more often than it actually should have. This was later patched out, but it got the speedrunning community thinking that perhaps categories should finally be added for this challenge. And if that wasn't enough, another glitch from earlier patches really pushed another class over the top. Kick skills were not working as intended upon the game's launch. Skills like Dragon Talon were glitched to the point where they would ignore any form of defense calculation and always hit their target. Previously, this always hit mechanic only existed on the Paladin's smite skill, so you can imagine how crazy things must have been when kick skills, which could hit several times faster than smite, also enjoyed that unintended bonus. This made it so that early kick-sin builds could ravage Uber Tristram at breakneck speeds, utilizing glitches that would almost certainly be patched out in time. It was clear upon this game's release that official times for the world record Uber Tristram runs probably needed to be reworked even more than the game did itself. But even after these unintended glitches were patched, the D2R devs released new items in the remake, which opened the door for new builds and new classes to finally compete in this speedrun category. By now, you might have heard of the rune word Mosaic. This new item blasted the assassin class into outer space when it came to killing monsters, but furthermore, this addition illustrated just how toxic pre-buffing was when it came to calculating the actual time of an Uber Tristram run. A very skilled Diablo player by the name of Lucky Luciano displayed just how vicious the Mosaic sin was when it came to completing this speedrun by the old rules. Because of all of these changes and potential future changes to the game, this speedrun category follows slightly different rules in the remake. Any time spent pre-buffing is now counted in the run. This includes using potions, casting battle orders, proccing fade, summoning minions, or building up charges. Before we get into the build and how it was able to take this record to new heights even in spite of all of these changes and new rules, let me tell you about Factor. the sponsor of today's video. Are you too busy to cook? You sick of living off soup and frozen meals just because you're trying to be all calorie conscious? Well, I've got just the thing for you. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Then you can get back to doing the important things. I was impressed at just how flavorful and filling these meals actually are. My personal favorite is the honey maple barbecue beef. You can just jam this right on a plate fresh out of the microwave, and the family will never know that you didn't spend hours preparing it. Try it for yourself and see what I mean. You can head over to factor75.com or click the link below and use code COOLIE50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. That's COOLIE with 3 O's. This season, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed dishes delivered directly to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Check it out today, and I promise you'll be glad you did. Even though the D2R Uber Tristram speedrun follows different rules than its LOD predecessor, it's crazy to watch these runs compared to each other. A new version of this Paladin not only skips practically all the pre-buffing that the previous build required, but saves a ton of time taking out the bosses with its choice of items. This is the Lacerator. Almost in its entirety, this build is the brainchild of a player by the name of Master Otis, who spent countless hours theory crafting the possibilities. As shown in the classic LOD run, having some source of amplify damage is so crucial to obtaining a good time with this character. But instead of using the Gavel of Pain, an item that has amplify damage charges on it, this build aims to proc that curse with the Lacerator. This allows this smiter to jump into the action right away, and when they do, this build becomes a beautiful symphony of smiteful violence. Even though the Paladin on LOD entered the portals completely pre-buffed, it's crazy to think that this new build achieved an even faster time than that. In prior builds, the mercenary's job was to occasionally proc Crushing Blow to help with a little bit of damage, but in this version, he's far more consistent in actually boosting the player's damage and not so much concerned with actually delivering any of his own. Some other important changes exist on the smiter itself. The choice to add a 15 IAS jewel to the Herald of Zakharum is huge, and the added attack speed makes it so that the build can hit a 6-frame smite window, even when he's slowed down by Duriel's Holy Freeze aura. This will save some very important time early on in the run. Gore Riders are still needed for open wounds when swapping between the Tristram Primevals. With some well-timed hits and procs from the Lacerator, you can curse all of these bosses at once if they stay together, and then you can sail through them while only swapping weapons once. But since we never smite on the Lacerator side that way, we'd never proc open wounds without these boots. Much like any smiter build should, we try to stack up as much Crushing Blow as possible, and the ring, Ammi, and belt help us hit 75% faster cast with a Spirit Shield on that side. It might be obvious to some, but the fastest time will almost certainly be taken by the Mosaic Sin eventually. But this version of the Paladin and the record it holds on this class could stand for a very long time. Links to the full build can be found in the description, and a link to the full video for this run can be found here. If you want to catch some of these speedruns live, be sure to follow me on Twitch, and let me know down below which build you think we should try with next. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.